Hi, my name is John Whitehead. I'm an executive and leadership coach, and welcome to my video blog post. It's been a few weeks since I've done a video blog post, and that was because I wasn't sure what I wanted to talk about. One of the great things about doing a blog for the number of years that I have is that I do have content in my library. So I was able to put up some previous content from previous blog posts. But the piece that that's been rattling around in my brain over the last little while is this whole idea of psychological safety and how it seems to be wrapped up in the whole area of diversity and inclusion and equity and justice. And also what we've been reading a lot about lately, this subject or idea of quiet quitting. And to me, it all gets jumbled up and has a ton of connections. And maybe you've seen a lot of those connections too, as you've been reading about them, about these things in the media. So let's just for a second, let me just remind you about the definition of psychological safety, or what I feel is one of the best definitions of psychological safety. And it comes from the book, The 4 Stages of Psychological Safety by Timothy Clark. And he writes, and I'm reading it, I have it in front of me. He says, psychological safety is a condition in which you feel 1, included, 2, safe to learn, 3, safe to contribute, and 4, safe to challenge the status quo, all without fear of being embarrassed, marginalized, or punished in some way. So let me say that again. Psychological safety is a condition in which you feel included, safe to learn, safe to contribute, and safe to challenge the status quo, all without fear of being embarrassed, marginalized, and punished in some way. And so for me, when I'm reading that, I think of this whole idea of DEI too, right? Where people feel marginalized because their background, their race, the color of their skin, their sexual orientation, their economic situation that they came through, all those things impact how safe they feel speaking up. So as leaders in organizations, and again, this blog post is for leadership, right? My blogs are based, are targeting leaders, and how can we grow our leadership? And so as leaders, how aware are we of that? What about our own biases? What are we not seeing? What is hidden from us? So a personal example would be, and this can be a bit painful, but we have just, here in Canada, September the 30th, we just had the Day of Remembrance, of reconciliation for our Indigenous peoples, and the way that the settler culture treated the Indigenous population, specifically here in Canada, and specifically around the residential school program, where we as a settler culture grab kids from families and put them into schools, trying to take, quote unquote, the Indian out of them, which is horrific. As we look at that now, it is horrific. It was horrific in the time, but the sensibility was different in the time. I understand that, I get that. But what about our own biases around First Nations? How many of us have seen, have gone into areas of our cities where we see homelessness and homelessness encampments, where a majority of those people, or quite a lot of those people, are Indigenous people, and we see them as either drunk or under the influence of drugs? How do we feel about that? What is the message? What have we been taught about that? Look at those dirty people. They can't take care of themselves. Not recognizing not recognizing that that is come from a history of how these people were treated. If you were a kid, you were grabbed from your family and put into a residential school where you were mistreated and all you saw was discipline and horrors. And then you were thrown back into your society after you finished your schooling, but you were given no sense of what family means, no sense of what necessarily what love was, well, no sense of connection. And then we wonder why there are dysfunctional families. So again, bringing this back to what does that mean for leadership? Well, as leaders, we're leading people. What are we not seeing? What are our biases? And how are we treating those people that we lead, right? And so this is just the first video that I want to talk about some of these things going forward. So let's follow this into the next video.